Welcome to your Daily 5 for Thursday, December 5th, 2024. I'm going to do something that is somewhat unusual for this particular episode, and that is I'm going to ask you to do Lando a favor. Not me, although you are to some degree doing me a favor, but you're more doing Lando a favor. In our show tomorrow, there is a segment where we are discussing something that Lando is grappling with in terms of his writing. And at one point, he asks for the input of listeners on what he's thinking to make sure it's not going to be confusing for them, which I think is a legitimate thing based on what he's kind of grappling with, to make sure that it's not going to be something that will confuse readers. And you will hear in this segment, and I'll give you the timestamp, it starts right about 37 minutes and 30 seconds and goes to an hour 17:30. So it's about a 40-minute segment beginning to end. And it has kind of a very clear beginning and ending, so you'll hear where it's starting and stopping. But I know that there are people who only listen to the 5-minute shows. You will hear me tell Lando this in that segment, and he can't understand. He cannot compute why anybody would only listen to the 5-minute shows and not the full-length shows. I attempt to explain it, but I don't think he could ever wrap his head around it. But in that segment, he asks for input from listeners because he already knows what I'm going to think about a lot of things. And I'm, like most people, he's surrounded himself in many ways with people who he already kind of knows how they think and knows what their reaction would be. And he wants to kind of get beyond that. And I think it's a great idea. And I'd like his writing to be at least minimally successful. So if this can help him write a better book, I actually suggest when you listen to that, if you listen to it, you will hear me suggest a couple of times or attempt to suggest that he just do a 5 himself, explaining what he wants input on, and he just won't do it because Lando just cannot function in certain ways like that. He just doesn't have whatever it is that allows me to do something like this and just ask people something. I don't know what it is, but whatever. I love him like a brother. I don't care. It's just what it is. And so I actually at one point just said, you know what? I'll do it for you. I'll just record something asking people to listen to this specific part of the show because the show is 3 hours. And unlike Lando, I can understand why some people don't want to dedicate 3 hours to listening to a bunch of hot air from me and him. That is not beyond my ability to figure out. So again, timestamp 37 minutes 30 to 1 hour 17:30. If you could please, for Lando, listen to that segment where we're discussing something that he's kind of wrestling with in terms of his writing, and then send feedback to the show email. You can just email the show account, and I will pass it on to Lando, because I do think it is worth having people, besides me, and probably his wife and my wife, tell him what we think about this thing that he's trying to figure out. It is a good idea when you're trying to write books that you want anybody to read, that you should take into consideration what people of any type of walk of life or whatever might read and be either confused or be able to immediately understand, especially when you're using a term in a way that's not being typically used. So you will hear us kind of go through this whole thing, and I land in one particular space where I think I have an idea that would work. And I think Lando is leaning towards the solution that he came up with, and that's where he's actually soliciting some outside feedback. So I think that's good, because I'm not going to pretend. I'm not a writer. So things that make sense to me may not make sense to a person who is writing. So I certainly understand that, and that's why I finally said, when I kept kind of trying to prompt him to just do his own 5 on this, I finally just got to a point and I said, I'll do it. I'll just do it for you, and that's what this is. So when the show comes out tomorrow, if you do not normally listen to it, or if you don't normally make it the whole way through, which I can also understand. Like I said, I have no problem understanding why some people never even want to delve into the long shows. I get it. But for Lando's sake, because I'd like to see him get some success as a writer, if you can listen to that 40-minute segment, and you can play it at double speed, that's fine. You'll get the gist of it. Again, one final time, 37 minutes and 30 seconds to 1 hour 17:30, where he's talking about something he's trying to figure out how to write correctly in the book that he's working on, and send feedback on it if you are so inclined to the show email, and I will pass it on to Lando. Again, I'm doing this for him because I want to help him out, and if you don't normally take that time to listen to the longer show, if you could listen to that, and if you don't have an opinion, that's fine too. If it's not something you care about, don't feel like you have to write anything. I'm not saying write something even if you don't really care, but I know we have people who are all over the place that listen to our show. So any outside feedback besides us would be appreciated. Thank you very much, and have a great day.